Who has tinnitus? Pete Townshend, guitar player of The Who. He has tinnitus ringing in the ears. Let's put an image up on the screen to see Pete Townshend today, how he looks. And now another image to show him back in his prime, rocking out. That's much better. I love that. What I'm here to describe today is the importance of tinnitus, ringing in the ears, loud music, and concerts. Pete Townshend has been struggling with ringing in the ears, what's also called tinnitus, what medical doctors and audiologists would refer to as tinnitus. Pete Townshend has been struggling with that for a number of years. In today's video, I'll cover the backstory, why it's important, and whether it will affect him for his future musical tours and performances. My name is Dr. Ben Thompson, audiologist, tinnitus specialist, based in the United States and dedicated to the tinnitus community. Maybe you have been to a loud rock concert. Maybe you've been to a concert of any type with loud music, and you've left that concert having a harder time hearing. That's called temporary threshold shift, and it happens when you're exposed to a lot of loud noise. In this case, loud music. I've gone to many shows, and right when you leave, you're stepping out of the stadium or the auditorium, and then you're having a harder time hearing people around you. I've been there. That's called temporary threshold shift, and that means it's a temporary hearing loss. That can also come with temporary tinnitus or ringing in the ears, and the next morning, most of the times that returns back to normal. However, if you repeat this over and over and over and over, you can have a hearing loss caused by loud noise, what's also called noise-induced hearing loss. One of the most common symptoms to accompany noise-induced hearing loss is tinnitus, ringing in the ears, tinnitus. You've had it, I'm sure. Pete Townshend has it. Let's now read an excerpt from 2010, an article in The Guardian. After decades of playing and listening to loud music, Townshend suffers from both tinnitus and partial deafness. Although his symptoms have receded in recent months, Townshend's problems re-emerged after the Super Bowl. Townshend said, "If my hearing is going to be a problem, we're not delaying shows, we're finished." Townshend told Rolling Stone magazine, "I can't really see any way around the issue." Townshend's medical fears have already led the group to cancel their spring tour and scheduled appearances at Coachella and the New Orleans Jazz Festival. Now, this is about a decade ago, and for those of us who follow ringing in the ears and tinnitus, we know that the symptom and the sound itself can change. It can get better, it can get worse, it can spike. You can have periods where you're habituated to it, meaning that it's essentially not a problem and you barely hear it in your life. So where is he at now? A 2019 article from the St. Paul, Minnesota Tribune had a few questions for Mr. Townshend. First question, what do you hear on stage? How do you deal with your tinnitus in the context of playing with such a large orchestra? Townshend replied, "I don't suffer from tinnitus anymore. This is old news that still goes around and round from 1975, and people forget I left The Who in 1982 to 1997 with a few shows in between and gave my hearing a proper long rest, and to the chagrin of guitar freaks, stopped using my old, very loud guitar rigs on stage." What do you recommend for people to do to protect their hearing for concerts, recording studios, and listening with personal devices? Townshend replied, "For working musicians and producers, there's very little you can do. If you wear protection or work at very low sound levels, you lose the vibe. Sorry, that's my view. We need to work at what would be illegal levels in industry or normal workplaces in order to feel what we do. At least I do. It inevitably causes damage. Then, if you're me, you get old and your hearing deteriorates further. I wear modern fancy hearing aids and life is grand. For audiences where in fact the sound levels are far higher than on stage in my case, the decision is yours." There you see in a 10-year period, Pete Townshend went from suffering with tinnitus, having to cancel their spring tour around 2010, including major performances like Coachella out in California and the New Orleans Jazz Festival in Louisiana. And then 9 years later in an article being asked about tinnitus and saying that he doesn't suffer from it anymore. That's an impactful statement, and it shows us that your tinnitus can get better. It shows us that this is not set in stone. This is not a permanent forever condition that when it's bad, it will stay bad. Nothing could be farther from the truth. If you have bad, bothersome tinnitus and you have to avoid going to concerts, if you can't go to work, if you can't be around loud noise, if it's causing so much challenge that you have to take a break, you can get back to living your normal life, even if you are a loud rock musician like Pete Townshend. In 2022, Pete Townshend is back on tour, as confirmed in Rolling Stone, which will show the image from the title of the Rolling Stone article right there. His tinnitus has not caused him to lay down his guitar. He's back on the live music stage with maximum protection in-ear monitors, we hope. All this to say, in a 15-year period, Pete Townshend went from very loud, bad tinnitus to much better tinnitus. What happened in between was probably not a linear progression. It was probably ups and downs, good days, good months, bad months. Some shows he probably wasn't bothered by it at all. Other shows it was causing a lot of stress, anxiety, and emotional turmoil, because the last thing he wants to do is cancel his tour or cancel his show. Now, it was mentioned earlier in the article that from 1982 to 1997, with a few shows in between, Townshend gave his hearing a proper long rest, and he stopped using very loud guitars on stage. Now, this is a good thing, and it also brings up something that's sensitive and sometimes sad for the music community, is that the very sounds that bring us so much joy also can injure and hurt our ears. And that's the nature of sound. Sound can damage and sound can heal. What we see here with Mr. Townshend from The Who is that he's being smart. He understands that life is a marathon. He understands that giving your ears a rest from loud noise has benefits. He understands that he can go and be around loud music, and it does not mean his tinnitus will change and get worse and stay that way forever. He probably understands that going onto a stage with loud music puts him at risk for a temporarily louder tinnitus, and that usually would last between hours and days. In our work, we work via telehealth, and we have relationships with patients. We have therapy sessions, we have appointments where we're providing treatments, we're providing therapies for individuals with bothersome tinnitus. One thing I'm proud to show is that Pete Townshend is very openly explaining that his tinnitus got better. He doesn't suffer from it anymore. He uses hearing aids to manage tinnitus. He uses hearing aids as well for a hearing loss he has. And he mentioned that he has these modern fancy hearing aids. That's right, because modern hearing aids are fancy, and they not only provide help for tinnitus as well as hearing loss, but there's also features that connect to a smartphone for Bluetooth, remote adjustments. We work in the telehealth model for that, and I agree that those devices are fancy and modern and quite helpful. Now, what's next for Pete Townshend and other musicians like him who are around loud noise quite frequently, who have a hearing loss, who have tinnitus, who are trying to figure out what they should do? I want you to know that it's okay to be around loud noise. Whenever possible, wear hearing protection. Being around loud noise will not make your tinnitus worse. It may temporarily change your tinnitus, but those temporary changes, they can come back to their baseline. And what we see here, I must say it again, the ringing in the ears, tinnitus, it's not set in stone. Because tinnitus is neurological, and that means there's no structural change that's causing the tinnitus to be worse or better. Changes in the hearing organ, the cochlea, those will impact hearing loss, and as a symptom of hearing loss, tinnitus can be there. However, the tinnitus can go up and down based on things like stress, medications, sleep, etc. If you're here and you haven't learned about what we do at Treble Health, please subscribe to this YouTube channel to stay connected. And as always, my friends, take care of your ears and be well. Thank you for watching today's video with Treble Health. Check out our next video by clicking the button on this screen or another recommended video. And if you're not already, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks so much. See you on the next video.